Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauga and you're watching the newsroom. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Iran's commercial attaché in Doha has told maritime trade between Iran and Qatar has resumed after a roughly 5-month suspension, although transit in and out of the Gulf remains contested. OPEC Plus has agreed a further increase in output targets from this August to 188,000 barrels per day onwards, adding to global supply at a time when oil prices are falling due to the gradual reopening of the Strait of Hormuz for oil exports. According to Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov, President Donald Trump held a nearly 90-minute phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin on July 4th, where he offered to assist in finding a rapid solution to the war, while Ukrainian President Zelensky also said he had good talk with President Trump on 4th. The three sons, Mostafa, Maysam, and Masoud Khamenei, of slain Iranian leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, prayed beside his coffin and those of other 4 family members. But the current leader, Mojtaba, the son who succeeded him as Iran's supreme leader, was not seen. Deadly assault by Yemen's Houthi rebels has killed 14 government troops and injured several others. Officials confirm the sudden offensive breaks fragile frontline calm and escalate regional tensions. A bitter cryptocurrency dispute emerges within an ongoing foreign women gang rape investigation involving a relative of Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar. Authorities expedite inquiries into the financial conflict as international pressure mounts on Islamabad. The death toll from the devastating Venezuela earthquakes rises to 2,954 people. With over 16,000 injured, emergency rescue teams race against time to clear debris amid intense aftershocks. China and Russia have confirmed plans to hold expansive joint naval drills. The drills aim to strengthen strategic cooperation and improve joint responses to security threats. Now we start this newsroom with Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared that there will be no reconstruction of Gaza until Hamas is completely disarmed. Speaking at his weekly cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected reports that Israel was preparing to launch pilot humanitarian housing projects in parts of Gaza under Israeli control. He made it clear that any rebuilding effort would only move forward after the enclave is demilitarized. The remarks come as international efforts to address Gaza's humanitarian crisis have stalled despite an existing ceasefire that has been repeatedly breached. Meanwhile, proposals to establish a Palestinian technocratic administration in place of Hamas remain deadlocked. Hamas has indicated it could consider surrendering its weapons, but only as part of a broader Palestinian political agreement, rejecting any arrangement it views as being imposed by the United States or Israel. Now we welcome my colleague and correspondent Ruby Barlow. She joins us live from the newsroom. Thank you, Ruby, for joining us. Ruby, looking at this stalemate that we are seeing and further comments made from Prime Minister Netanyahu, what more can you tell us about this?
Indeed, Asuma. So we have heard about some comments that Netanyahu has made, the Israeli Prime Minister. He's reiterated that Gaza won't be fully rebuilt until Hamas is fully disarmed. Now, the cost of completely rebuilding Gaza is estimated to be about $70 billion US. However, that there has also been reports in the media that President Trump asked not to act against terror tunnels in Lebanon, and so he has also said that it is fake news, and he said that Israel operates according to their own considerations. Hamas has recently agreed in principle to terms that include handing over heavy weapons to tunnel maps, production sites, and weapons caches to a committee. However, senior Hamas leaders have rejected key elements of the disarmament in recent months. Now, Netanyahu has said that Israel and the United States are aligned on the principle that reconstruction funds should not flow into Gaza while Hamas retains military capabilities. So there may be some room there for political capabilities possibly. He's also stressed that the war's objectives remain the elimination of Hamas's military and governing capabilities, the return of Israeli hostages, and ensuring Gaza no longer poses a security threat to Israel. Of course, large parts of Gaza have been devastated after nearly 2 years of conflict, with international donors discussing multi-billion-dollar reconstruction plans, and we have seen some of that play out with the American-led Board of Peace, which Trump has, of course, put together after the ceasefire last year. Israel has consistently argued that rebuilding Gaza before Hamas is disarmed would allow the group to rearm and rebuild its military infrastructure. And so, of course, we have seen over the past couple of years the prohibition of entry of several types of different materials into Gaza by the Israeli government, and of course the Israeli government has said that some of these are being used for military purposes by Hamas, such as using construction materials to build infrastructure for Hamas, like those tunnels. Hamas has repeatedly rejected calls to surrender its weapons and insisting that disarmament cannot be discussed without a comprehensive political settlement and an Israeli withdrawal. So we do see two contrasting viewpoints, of course, on this particular subject. The issue of Hamas's future role remains one of the biggest obstacles to a permanent ceasefire and post-war governance plans for Gaza. Of course, with the Palestinian territories split between controlled by the PLO in the West Bank and, of course, under Hamas in Gaza. Now, the last time Gaza had an election was 2004, which means that a very large portion of eligible voters right now have not voted for their government in 20 years. And so, of course, it technically is under Hamas political control at the moment. And so then we do see some of that reluctance from Hamas in order to give up some of that governing and that military control as well. And of course we do see the opposing side from Israel as well, who've said that they only want to see reconstruction begin once Hamas does take up, once Hamas does put down their arms and put down some of that military control. Now, of course, Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has said that demilitarization is a precondition for reconstruction. And of course, this is something that he has said since the ceasefire was put in place a couple of months ago, last year. Now, of course, we are coming up to almost 1 year of the ceasefire being in place. We have seen strikes occasionally in Gaza since the ceasefire was put in place. Israel controls about 70% of Gazan territory at the moment. And we have also seen calls from far-right fringe figures within Israel, but also within Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet for the re-establishment of Israeli settlements in the north of Gaza. However, of course, this is not a permanent government policy, but of course, these calls did come from Bezalel Smotrich, who is the finance minister and is part of Benjamin Netanyahu's ruling coalition. Now, if Hamas does agree to this disarmament plan in order for reconstruction efforts to go ahead, it does remain to be seen. Of course, we do still have the Board of Peace mechanism in place. However, it may be difficult for those plans to go ahead, of course, as global attention is held elsewhere for the moment. But any more developments, Asuma, I'll bring them to you straight here on NewsX.
Thank you very much, Ruby, for sharing that. Please do stay with us as we'll come back to you. Now we stay in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected media reports claiming that US President Donald Trump urged Israel not to take action against what Israel describes as terror tunnels in Lebanon. Speaking at a cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Netanyahu dismissed the reports as fake news, insisting that no such request was made during his conversations with the US President. According to Netanyahu, President Trump did not ask Israel to avoid military action, nor did the issue come up during their discussions. He stressed that Israel makes its security decisions independently and acts according to its own strategic considerations. The clarification comes amid heightened regional tensions and continued concerns over cross-border threats involving the Iran-backed Hezbollah group in southern Lebanon. Israel has repeatedly said it will continue taking action to counter any security threats along its northern border. Now we welcome my colleague and correspondent Ruby Barlow. She joins us live from the newsroom. Thank you very much, Ruby, for staying with us. Staying on Israel, what more can you tell us about this?
Indeed, Asuma. So I do have the quote here from Benjamin Netanyahu. He has said that it was said in the media that President Trump asked not to act against terror tunnels in Lebanon. This is a legend, fake news. He didn't say anything to me about it, and I didn't ask him. We operate according to our considerations. And of course, Israel and the United States do operate in accordance with their own considerations. However, they do take the interests of each other very much highly into consideration, of course being such close allies, even though Israel being a junior partner. Now, of course, Israel's defense interests are the United States' defense interests, but we have seen this play out in the US-Iran MOU proceedings, where Israel has been presented by the Iranian side as somewhat of a vassal state of the United States, of course with Iran putting a wider calm in Lebanon as a precondition into the MOU in the very, very first point. Now, of course, Israel did not appreciate that, and Netanyahu has hit back at any criticism, saying that Israel is acting according to American wishes. However, of course, the United States does really want to see the peace deal and the ceasefire in Lebanon move forward and proceed well, so that that MOU between the US and Iran can stay signed together. Now, of course, in regards to those statements coming from Benjamin Netanyahu, he's dismissed these reports that Donald Trump has urged Israel not to strike Hezbollah tunnels in Lebanon. He's called those reports fake news, of course, as I just said before. There has also been reports of discord between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump in the media before. Of course, we did hear a couple of weeks ago about a phone call between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu regarding strikes on Beirut. We did see some of those strikes in the southern suburbs of Beirut. It seemed that this was a red line for Donald Trump. And we did see, of course, some of that retaliation coming from Donald Trump himself, calling him up and saying to Netanyahu that he would be in jail if not for Trump as well. Now, speaking at Israel's cabinet meeting, Netanyahu did say that Trump didn't say anything to me on the matter and I didn't ask him, adding that Israel acts according to its own security considerations, which of course we do see play out in terms of their security policy as well. But it's not only Israel's security considerations and American considerations that play a role. Israel is heading into an election coming up very soon, and Netanyahu has a reputation as a strongman on military strength to protect, to continue. He has also, of course, he is also facing a new opponent this time round, a coalition formed by the centre-left and centre-right candidates, of course with Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett, which may be a new force to contend with for Netanyahu this time, and perhaps may bring together some of his voters against him in a coalition form this time round. However, of course, it does remain to be seen how this election will play out. But of course, all of the last couple of months of events will definitely play a massive role. Of course, Netanyahu's remarks do come amid the continued Israeli operations against what it says are Hezbollah military positions and tunnel infrastructure near the Lebanese border. Now, of course, it is important to note that Israel has put this whole operation on the context of hitting back at Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon, which is one of their main geographic areas where they are located. They do have a presence in the south of Lebanon, in the south of Beirut rather, and also in the northeast of Lebanon as well. But they are mainly concentrated in the south of Lebanon, where there is a large Shia Muslim community which does maintain some popular support for Hezbollah, but not entirely communitarian support. Now, We have also seen these attacks in southern Lebanon and this occupation of the area by the Israeli Defense Force contribute to a massive humanitarian crisis in Lebanon as well. It is important to note. So far, we have seen at the peak of it more than 1.2 million Lebanese displaced in Lebanon. We have also heard over the last couple of days of some 400,000 Lebanese returning back south of the Litani River, hoping for some days of calm to return to some of their homes. However, of course, there has been these massive strikes taking out infrastructure, not only civilian infrastructure, but also civilian homes as well, and some of those essential buildings and infrastructure that is important for civilian life. But we do see the majority of these strikes targeted towards Hezbollah infrastructure, as Israel puts it. Now, of course, we have also seen, retaliatory strikes from Hezbollah against some of those northern communities in Israel. We have seen significant disruptions and some deaths of some Israeli soldiers in those regions as well. However, there was a ceasefire signed between Lebanon and Israel, not Hezbollah, however. However, this has seemed to dim the conflict a bit. We are seeing the tempo and the rhythm of these strikes simmer down quite a bit compared to what it was a couple of weeks ago. And so perhaps we may see that trend continue as the Iran and US MOU does continue to be negotiated, as that process does continue as well. Now, of course, in terms of these tunnels, these Hezbollah tunnels, Israeli officials argue the tunnels pose a direct threat to some of those northern Israeli communities and say that the military action is justified. Any more developments, Asuma? I'll come back to you.
Thank you very much, Ruby, for sharing that insight. Please do stay with us as we'll come back to you. Now, staying in the Middle East, maritime trade between Iran and Qatar has officially resumed following a 5-month suspension, marking a significant step in the region's post-war economic recovery. According to Iran's commercial attaché in Doha, Qatar, Abbas Abdul Khani, shipping operations between Iran's Deir port and Qatar's Al Ruwais port are now back underway, following coordinated efforts between both nations. This resumption follows an interim agreement signed last month between Tehran and Washington, which mandated a return to pre-war maritime traffic patterns across the Gulf. While transit through the Strait of Hormuz remains a key area of focus, this development aligns with broader signs of stabilization. Reports also indicate that Iranian goods have begun clearing at the United Arab Emirates' Jebel Ali port, signaling a gradual thaw in trade relations across the Gulf. As indirect talks continue in Doha, regional actors are closely monitoring these maritime corridors for further de-escalation, which could prove critical for future energy logistics and regional economic normalization. Now we welcome back my colleague and correspondent Ruby Barlow. She joins us live from the newsroom. Thank you very much, Ruby, for staying with us. Ruby, what more can you tell us about Iran and Qatar and Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, Asuma, so we have seen shipping between these two ports resume after a nearly 5-month pause, coming from the US-Iran war, which of course did see the Strait of Hormuz completely closed to shipping traffic, with only a couple of ships making it through. Now, Iran has said that they put some sort of shipping tracking system in place, but the fact that this shipping system, these tolls, that these ports are open once again between Iran and Qatar is an encouraging sign of normalization of the situation. Now, these reports are coming to us from Iranian state media, but they are saying that ferro and cargo services between Iran's Deir port and Qatar's Al Ruwais port have restarted, restoring an important commercial shipping route. Now, Qatar also announced that all maritime activities have resumed immediately, signaling an easing of recent regional disruptions. Now, this route is mainly used for regional shipping as well. It's not particularly used in terms of large oil shipments, in terms of international shipping, but it is still an encouraging reopening. Now, of course, we did see the pausing of these shipping links for about 5 months due to the regional tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States. The resumption is, of course, seen as an important step towards restoring normal commercial and transport links across the Gulf of course, which has been heavily affected by the last couple of months of war. And we didn't just see that in that region, we did see the impacts worldwide, with of course oil prices being affected worldwide, and some of those other impacts being passed on to other consumer goods as well, such as the impact on fertilizer, which has flowed down into agriculture, which has flowed down into the cost of fruits and vegetables for people. We did also see impacts on other areas of people's lives, particularly in countries with heavy energy importing nations, such as some in Asia. We did see school closings, rations on fuel, restrictions on car travel on certain days in some of those very energy importing countries, such as Pakistan, such as the Philippines, Thailand, South Korea as well. But of course, in regards to this, this reopening is just specifically between Iran and Qatar, but it is an encouraging sign of normalization perhaps in the future. Now, Iran and Qatar do maintain close economic ties despite this wider regional instability, with maritime routes like this one that has been reopened, playing a key role in trade, food supplies and passenger movement between the two countries and across the Strait of Hormuz, of course. The reopening does come as diplomatic efforts continue to stabilise the region following recent ceasefire negotiations and wider Gulf security discussions. And of course, we have seen some of those meetings between some of those Gulf countries, some of the partners from the broader area as well in regards to security, and also of course in regards to commerce and shipping as well, as of course it does seem the balance of power has now been tipped in Iran's favour going forward, specifically regarding the control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, any more updates, Asuma, I'll come back to you very soon.
Thank you very much, Ruby, for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Now, staying in the region, French President Emmanuel Macron is expected to visit Syria for high-level talks focused on strengthening bilateral relations and discussions regarding regional and international developments of mutual interest. According to Syria's presidency media directorate, in a statement to Sana'a, the directorate said Macron will be accompanied by a delegation of investors and representatives from French companies, signaling an emphasis on expanding economic cooperation alongside political engagement. President Ahmed al-Sharaa and President Macron are scheduled to hold a roundtable meeting with their respective delegations. The discussions are expected to cover regional stability, international developments, and opportunities for deeper cooperation across multiple sectors as part of ongoing political dialogue between Damascus and Paris. The Syrian presidency said the visit builds on earlier diplomatic engagement, including President al-Sharaa's visit to France last year at Macron's invitation, where both leaders held talks at Élysée Palace on expanding cooperation and supporting reconstruction efforts. During those discussions, both sides stressed respect for Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity, while also highlighting the need to support recovery and broaden cooperation in areas of mutual interest. The upcoming visit is being seen as part of continued political consultations between Syria and France, aimed at gradually rebuilding the ties and enhancing coordination on shared regional and international priorities. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.